Welcome to Welcome to Creators Therapy session. Welcome to a Creators Therapy session. Maybe you can relate to what I'm trying to express. I'm looking at the watch right now. I know how much time I have to make this video, or how much time I can somehow reserve to make this video. And looking at the watch, looking at the time, I feel that the pressure is rising to get this done. Especially right now, because right now I'm in post-production and looking at the same watch and the time has progressed. Even though there isn't any real pressure to make it, simply because if I publish it today or in 2 weeks, it doesn't make a difference. But from my point of view, a platform like YouTube and a medium like video can be used for something entirely different, and it doesn't have anything to do with those numbers. It mostly and mainly has to do with emotion and empathy. But I think I created a trap myself, or I stepped into a trap. A trap I like to call the attention trap. Something that you probably know if you are creating something actively. Could be videos, might be making music, or publishing articles on a blog. Because the way that the internet and social media and places like YouTube work is that they favor regularity, or at least they seem to do so. And how I'm making videos today, I probably learned in the last couple of years. Because a few years ago, I started to publish videos on LinkedIn that I used for my own marketing, that I used for personal branding. I used to kind of get across my questions about learning and development in companies. And doing so, I realized that this whole making videos and creating podcasts thing is a huge deal for me. It's a lot of fun, and I feel like I want to create bigger projects. I want to be part of bigger projects. And when I see something like cinema productions, I feel like that I want to do something that's at least remotely similar to them, for the fact that I admire the amount of time that is taken to create something like this. So I recently watched a documentary about the creation of the girl with the dragon tattoo, where they simply took 3 days, 3 whole days, to film one short sequence, because they simply wanted to get it right. And I think that's what film, what movies need in order to have a really high quality. And so I feel like I want to do something like that myself. But my problem is that this whole video thing so far, for me, is just a side project. And it doesn't make me any money. All it does, but that's the most important thing, is it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me to express emotion. It means a lot to me to bring such a project to life. However, and here's the big problem, and I think that's where the attention trap comes into play. The way that I've created everything so far was always small projects. When I know, like right now, I've got about 2 hours to get something like this across, to produce something like this, then I probably won't work on something that I will just ship in maybe 30 days, simply because I'm unable to hold that in my mind as a project. And of course, you might say, okay, then start scripting your stuff, and then you can simply edit them separately from producing them. But for me, so far, this doesn't work, because I seem to think that scripting isn't fun. Whenever I sit down and start typing, I feel like my mind is already 3 pages ahead because I have the whole thing in my head already. But if I want to create something that's bigger, well, at some point I won't be able to hold it in my head anymore, and I won't be able to create something that's bigger. I had the pleasure to travel this year, and I went to Costa Rica and to Canada. And also there, I struggled to create something that was bigger than my usual. I've got 3 hours to spend, so I can maybe try and make a video that's 5 to 10 minutes long. And when I think about that, I always wonder, what are the reasons and what are the invisible boundaries that hold me back? And I think it has to do with that I'm self-employed, and so I do get to decide what to spend my time on, but I am also responsible to pick projects that eventually pay my rent. So I cannot take bigger risks because I'm also not just responsible for myself, but also for a family. And so when I think about this, I have got 3 hours to spend to make something. In my mind, it's easier to then just spend the time on one small project and then ship it and be done with it, as opposed to working on something that's bigger and that I will just ship in maybe 30 days. And I don't know how others make it. I don't know how people that are visible on a platform like YouTube, for example, manage to do that. Even though, of course, the arguments are pretty simple, because the quality that I'll be able to produce in 30 days will be infinitely higher than compared to 3 hours. However, and here's where I think the attention trap steps in, I'm trying to create things that I like, that I can be proud of. But I feel like it's so hard to make that shift from the way that I've always done it and that I'm used to now and the workflow that simply works to something that's infinitely more complex, but will mean that I will definitely be able to shift to higher quality. And don't get me wrong, higher quality doesn't mean that everything is super glossy and extremely well produced. It simply means it tells a better story, or it tells the same story in a more meaningful, moving and engaging way. Man! And I'm really curious how you view this attention trap. If this in fact seems to exist for you too. So do you have the feeling that you need to be visible, you need to be present, and when you have the time, you do something that makes you visible? Or can you stay away from the platforms and create your own thing until you ship it? Because I think that's something ultimately that art, that creation, that real creativity needs. And I'm struggling with it because of the way that those platforms work and the way that I am used to right now. It's a real challenge, but I'm willing to take it. By the way, it got really warm here, so that's why.